Hello, fellow educators. I just wanted to give you a very brief kind of background on using Camtasia for editing. So the bulk of my editing I actually do on Camtasia. It's a screen recording, video editing software, and my school has license for it, free for faculty. And so I use it to screen capture and to do the majority of my video editing. I normally polish things off in iMovie with my Mac because I love it and it's easy for me to incorporate some of the other artistic changes like with music and so forth. So you have several areas on Camtasia that you're going to be working with. Your media bin is the first thing, and this is where you're going to put any video, images, that you want to put in the video that you're making. You can add things by pressing the plus sign and importing it. You can drag and drop into your media bin. For the Coppers Reaction Lab, I have several videos. I use two different cameras to film. I use my iPad to film from above, and I filmed my iPhone getting side views of things so I could have simultaneous footage overlaying on top of each other. You have your timeline down here, and this is where you manipulate your media with the different effects that you want, overlaying, speeding up, slowing down, animating, any grouping things. This is your work canvas. This is where you're doing the work. This is your viewer. This is where you preview what you did. So when you press play, it's going to play and show you what you did. This is your marking area. This is where your guide. This is where you're at in your movie. And you can use it to crop and delete. So your slider, it's got a green toggle on the left. It's got a red toggle on the right. And when you manipulate things out, you can make changes in that window. So if you want to delete something and delete everything, then you can ripple delete and it'll slide everything over. Okay, so everything moved with it. If you want to delete something, which sometimes is the case that you want to do, and you just delete, it's going to leave a big gap. Okay, sometimes that's appropriate for what you want to do, but pay attention when you're deleting and make sure you don't accidentally do something you didn't want to do. So right now, if you look at this shot that I have two videos side by side. I have a little header up here, and I have a little foot thing. So what does that actually look like in your tracks? So right down here where you see this is highlighted in yellow, and then you see up here that there's this white, thing with my little indicator on the inside. That's that image, and I can move it around and I can toggle it. I can make it smaller if I wanted to. So this is the area where you're choosing what you want to work with. And so I'm just going to undo all that. If you go up, notice my bottom two tracks are empty right now. Don't worry about that. So in that frame, if we go up, this next one is this one. Okay. If you go up again, this is the header. So I couldn't do superscript and subscripts to effect for an actual chemical reaction, so I just use words. But you can, when you click on this box over here in properties, this is always going to show you what you're working on. Okay, so you can rotate images if you want to rotate them. You can do a lot of things, so you just click on that. And so when we click on this, you'll see that our properties window changes to match what we're working with. So in this little text window, We have the text. This is where we can actually adjust the text that's in the window. We can adjust the background. So if we click on this for the actual caption notation, we can change the fill. I just use white. We can change the outline so you can barely see it, but there's a blue outline around that. And you can change it to be black. You can change it to be whatever. So if we scroll further up in another track, I know this looks like a hot mess, but when you're doing complex editing, you develop more and more tracks, and that's to overlay at a certain point in time. You can also group things together so it's less messy, and I do that in the beginning. Oops, I just put a marker. So this is the bottom one. So you can see for this particular point in the video, I got multiple tracks going on. This right here where you see it in green, this is the animation. So I'm going to zoom into this point. This is your slider for zooming. So right here is the animation that I put for this transition. And you can move your slider back and forth and see what it'll look like. And if you decide that that animation looks terrible, that transition, then you just take it out, go here to transitions, and you can change it. And you can put something else in there. But drag and drop a transition where you want it, and that'll transition between two different segments. And then boom, you can see what it looks like. I try to keep the animation, the transitions simple. I don't like complex transitions. I think it takes away. So we talked about the media bin, annotations. This is where you can put something down. So there was this one point in the video that had, it'd take me a minute to find it, when I was doing the experiment with my TA that was helping. We were just kind of watching it, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. Anyway, so if you see something in your video footage, it'll take me a minute to find it. I actually don't know where it is. Well, for one thing, I want to pull this down a little bit. I actually don't remember where it was in the original. So there was this one little eruption in this copper oxide solution. It looked like a mushroom cloud billowing. Well, I can't find it, but anyway. Ooh, that looked promising. So things are starting to build up right here. So if you have a section of film that you're like, I really want to manipulate that, okay? If you want to manipulate something and you don't want to mess anything else up in your track, you don't want it to move, you don't want to adjust anything, then you can go through your tracks and you can lock them all for editing. And this means that you're free to work within this canvas right here and not screw everything else up. So put your cursor where you want to do something. If you want to split a clip because you want to add an effect to just one section. The chemistry never gets old. I'll sit here and just watch this all day. So you can edit and just split that clip. Now, if I want to add some kind of time lapse or I got to get this out of the marker phase. So y'all keep seeing I'm popping up this little plus sign with a marker. You can actually go in, if you look over here on the left, you can actually mark something if you want to keep track of it, and you can even pop in quiz questions. So it puts a holder where you want a quiz, and over here in your properties, you choose true, false, multiple choice, put in your stuff, and you can actually pop quiz questions in here. So anyway, I'm going to get it off of that because I don't want to keep putting a marker where I don't want a marker. So you can add a visual effect. So if you want to time lapse something, and sometimes this is really important for chemistry because you want to slow something down or speed something up, then click on this and it's going to get your time lapse, and you'll look over here on your properties and you can see clip speed. So if I want to speed that up 10 times, then it's going to shorten the clip. I know I have this whole area. If I played this back, then this would be empty. So you want to make sure that you're filling that, with something else if you don't want to adjust everything. And so nothing's showing there right now. So I may want to split this up again. And maybe what I want to do is take this clip and during that particular thing, maybe I want to slow this one down or speed it up. So maybe I'll do that maybe I'll do that 10 times just to make it speed up, and maybe on this clip I'll just slow it down. So click on it and drag it, and this, you can use the rest of the window, and this will put it back to a little bit of a normal time. So you can see what that looks like. It'll shoot it up, and then it'll slow it down. So that's just with speed effects. Drag and drop them, and you can choose to do different things. If you have another clip that you want to break it up and show different things, you can copy a clip in the timeline and manipulate them in separate windows. But one of the things you want to keep track of is you want to keep your timeline as simple as you can so you don't lose track. So these are different visual effects you can do. If you want to add voice narration to your canvas, because you may be wanting to get rid of the video that was originally, because it can be quite, if you're filming labs, it can be very noisy and sometimes things you don't want heard and part of the experiment. So you can do voice narration, and so you just click on voice narration. Wow, look at that thing go. That is really cool. And what this is going to do is it's going to add another track, and it's going to put your voice narration down. And so now it's there. You can adjust the volume in your voice narration if you want to make it louder or shorter. You can even move these around, so anytime you click on something, you can move it into different locations. So there's a lot of things you can do. You can speed up sound, do things with sound as well, fading in, fading out. There's where you can add a quiz to your timeline. I don't do that. I do my quizzes in Canvas if I need one. And then you can also put in effects. So if you're recording it, like doing a screen recording, you can do cursor effects. So when you're recording, it'll actually highlight your cursor, because I use my vernier. So those are different. Those are just the basic ins and outs of what you can do. When you're ready, I'm going to zoom in. You can see all the different layers I have going on. This video took about 12 hours total to make. It was actually very tedious, but the end result was actually pretty good. So um, you can see different speed effects that I put in here in many places. This was one of them. If you have a lab component that takes 20 minutes to do and it's something just sitting there, you can add a speed effect. So in this one, I sped it up 10 times. So you can actually see the solution just start to settle at the bottom. So time lapse can be very appropriate. Transitions are very good to move yourself from one segment to another when you're changing a scene. And your captions, keep them simple. There's no need to do crazy things. And one thing I wanted to say about time lapse is you can take the most mundane thing. I mean, nobody cares about drying their sample at the end of a lab. However, if you take that same thing and you add a time lapse effect to it, then you can actually start to see your water moving. At the end, you can see your solution, actually the water leaving your sample and it drying out. So you can convey a scientific thing with your students by using time lapse. Okay, I hope that helps.